Hello. Council is in session. And guess what, my friends? I have a guest. And a time loop. Not anymore.
Hi.
Hello, Federica. Say hello.
Hi.
Uh-oh, we've got the
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me.
I think I screwed it up by switching screens or something. Let's see if you snap back. Your screen got all laggy again like it was before. But if it continues, I'll have you bounce out and in again. Oh, it looks like it's catching up. There we
Okay,
go.
perfect.
So talk for a little bit and let me see how your audio is. I believe it's good. Tell the people who you are.
Hopefully it's good. Hi, everybody. My name is Federica. Some of you guys might have seen me on Twitter. I like to think I am a journalist, so you might have read some of my stuff recently about House of the Dragon. If you haven't, that's more than okay. Don't go look for them. Today we are going to be talking about some of the characters, the main characters in House of the Dragon, and we're very excited to do that. And I think my audio works just fine, so I'm going to stop talking.
Perfect, perfect. Already my chat is living up to expectations. Which one is LML and which one is Federica? just a couple of Dornish Targaryens, as I was saying yesterday on Twitter. No, the eyebrow. This is how it works. Blonde hair, dark eyebrows. It's totally natural. Occurs in the wild all the time. Yes.
Yeah.
So. Oh, let me. Why don't you have your name too? I need to put your name on there. There it is, Fede.
Yay!
There we go. So I should just call you Fede instead of Federica. Is that how
Yes,
how
absolutely.
Okay, very good, very good.
Absolutely.
And in case you missed it, guys, I have figured out how to do all kinds of crazy stuff. Look at this. Look at this. We've got images, we've got things. So you saw I opened the session here. This is my Septarian orb, and I've shared this before, but just trumpeting my tiny little find here. Those little the balls they're clanking into the dish in the Great Council scenes, those are called Septarians, and the nickname for them is a dragonstone. And when you crack them open, they look, you can get these egg-shaped geodes where you can see on the right it's all sparkly on the inside. But point is, the reason that they're using those stones, I think it just means like that the council's in session, or maybe they use them to vote. It's something basic and formal like that. But the point is, they would have picked them because they're called dragon stones. As a bonus, the word Septarian contains the word sept, and so it's kind of a dual reference there. You get the Faith of the Seven reference and the dragon reference. But in any case, so I went to the rock store, and the show and tell is now over. But Federica, what I was thinking to do today, and I'll probably call you Federica a few times too, so we'll keep it going. I get Dave and
That's a
David, so I mean, you just got to roll with it. But what we're gonna do today, we're doing a character discussion, like you said. There's a bunch of new images that came out last couple days, so we're gonna do this a little bit like a Rorschach psychology thing here. I'm gonna flip up some of the pictures. I'm gonna ask us how we feel about them, and then we'll get into the character discussion. So this will be a no spoilers discussion, at least for the first half. I might throw a switch at some point so we can talk about some of the stuff from Fire and Blood that happens during the events of the show. But we'll start off just by talking about the characters, how they are like going into House of the Dragon, and we'll sort of generalize about their motivations, but not get into the specifics of what we're going to see on the show. So if you're looking to watch some stuff and not be spoiled, this is an okay stream to watch, at least for the first half. And so first image that really jumped out to me, Fede, was this one here.
yes.
We there's a lot to say about Targaryen prophecy, and obviously everyone's been talking about that. Patty Considine said, that Viserys is carrying some secret about the end of the world, and everyone connected that with George's statement about maybe Aegon had a vision about the end of the world in the long night or something, and that's maybe why he conquered Westeros. So we know that this sort of Targaryen secrets and prophetic lore is going to be a big part of the show. I just feel like that's pouring off the page here with this one. So how does this make you feel here?
Absolutely. I mean, it already feels like we're already talking about, over 300 years ahead, what's going to happen. So we're kind of jumping right in, and also for the fans, maybe not even book fans, but fans of the predecessor show, they're already going to be thrown in. Okay, so this does actually have some continuity. White Walkers and everything that comes with that. So I feel pretty good about it. I like that we're already talking about these things. I mean, hopefully it's just gonna be an Easter egg and be said in passing. I don't think it's gonna be like the big thing of the show, of course, but it's nice that it's there.
Yeah, so there's kind of, it seems like there's two reactions to this plot line being present. One, which is cool, Valyrian lore, prophecy, dragon
Yes.
lore, tell us more. What was Rhaegar doing? All that stuff. And then the other one is concern, and you sort of touched on it. How's this going to affect people's motivations? All of a sudden, everything that Rhaenyra does or Daemon or somebody is, oh, well, they had prophecy, so it wasn't bad, and they actually didn't make mistakes, and they're not a flawed character because there's a prophecy. I've seen some of that kind of energy, but the way I feel about it is like the burden of prophetic knowledge is simply one more thing that puts people's hearts into conflict. It's very comparable to political responsibility because the prophetic knowledge creates a responsibility. Aegon's, oh God, I've got to worry about the end of the friggin' world. That's on my shoulders. So it's very similar to being king and feeling like the welfare of the common good is on your shoulders, right?
Absolutely, and I feel like it gives even Viserys as a character more depth because the fact that he has this, as you said, burden on his shoulders, he has this knowledge, this secret. Suddenly, everything he does is not just about who's going to succeed me, but it's also about what is the best choice for when that happens. Because obviously, we don't know how much they know. Maybe, as far as they know, it could happen tomorrow in 20 years or, in 100 or 300. But
yeah, he just knows he's got to keep his family alive. And that's why he talked about the Iron Throne is the most dangerous seed and our family line is easily extinguished and all that stuff. So it's not even that like he's going to have to fight the White Walkers. It's just raising the stakes of holding on to the throne and staying in power. And you've heard that in the clip, like Viserys apparently has this kind of love-hate relationship with dragons, right? Where he's like, oh, well, people never should have messed with them. But we might need him for the end of the world, and it's very important. It's like it's a very conflicted position that Viserys is in. And you can see here he's like maybe trying to figure out like how Targaryen am I, right?
How much? What can I do?
Yeah, didn't Quentin do that?
Why? Why would you say this to me at the beginning of the? You don't want to make me cry about Quentin. Like, don't do that to me. I really love Quentin. Probably too much.
He does though. He does do the hand over the candle. Like, can I ride that? He's like, ow, that hurts. It's like, no, Quentin, don't do it. Don't do it. All right. Well, rest in peace. All right. So let's make us. All right. Let me turn it around. I'll turn it around. We'll pull us out of the ditch. How does this make you feel now?
Oh. Okay. First of all, that's my baby. I feel we've all been trying to figure out how she got hurt because she has blood all over her. Technically, it could also not be her blood, but I don't know. I think this is the same attire that she was wearing in the hunt scene the clip that we saw in the trailer. So that would be fun to figure out. I highly doubt she would honestly fall from her horse. Like, she wouldn't. This girl has been riding a dragon since she was 6 or 7. I don't think she would fall from a horse, but then again, you never know. Maybe the horse got spooked. But yeah.
Yeah,
I think something you said regarding this image was that she already has an edge to her.
Oh, did I lose you? Oh, you just, okay. You Maybe. Just dramatic pause. Okay, sorry. The picture's choking. Your audio's still good. The picture's a little jerky, but that's okay. All right, so, yeah, exactly. You could tell, like, she's not a shrinking violet. She's not oh, what am I doing here? What's going on? Like, no, she might hop on her dragon and go do something, like, kind of emo or something, you know? That's definitely the character. You can see that impulsive side in her already, just in the first episode, so... Yeah. This picture's not from the first episode, so I don't know what's going on here at all. But obviously she's mixing it up somewhere. And I don't have a picture of this, but there is a little clip that got shared on some app somewhere, and it shows Rhaenyra flying on the dragon real briefly. You see her, she's holding on to the saddle, and it's a close-up of her in the armor, and you just see the top of the dragon's head, and she's like kind of riding it. You can see in the background that it's Dragonstone. So people have started to wonder, you know, the little confrontation with Otto and Daemon, where one of the dragons does a little flyby. Is that possibly Rhaenyra on Syrax? We have to wonder now, right? So
Yeah, that might be. That might be. That scene, I mean, in the trailer, that scene looks so dramatic, right? They're there like with basically two small armies, and Daemon has Nasaria there and the egg. I mean, if Rhaenyra is really there, that's gonna be such a huge scene, you know, for Rhaenyra to kind of intervene on her uncle's behalf. One would hope.
That would raise the stakes hugely, and it also kind of gets to what I was saying about, like, don't just look at the Daemon and Rhaenyra thing like, ooh, that's creepy. Daemon's older, Rhaenyra's 14. Like, we might see Rhaenyra like save her uncle's bacon. It's the feel that I get from the first episode is like Daemon is very much the cool uncle that you know your parents don't like or like have a problem with, and so she kind of has a soft spot for her uncle, even though she knows her dad like has issues with him. So it's very much a family affair, you know, the way that it feels or whatever. So I could definitely see that working, where Rhaenyra maybe swoops in and brushes back Sir Otto or something like that. Now, they could be completely different scenes. Obviously, there's many reasons why Rhaenyra would be flying around Dragonstone, so this could be a trailer misleading thing or whatever. But bottom line, yeah, this is a cool picture, and you could see, you know, that Rhaenyra, it's just a compelling. Yeah, it makes you wonder, did she what was she doing? Was she wrestling? Was there a rough dragon landing, or, you know what I mean? Like, maybe you're flying around Dragonstone and sometimes little lava rocks fly up in the air or something. I don't know. But, all right, so.
You can definitely see determination on her face, you know, whether she's looking at maybe the person who made her fall or whatever. Like, she's not crying about it. She doesn't look like she's hurt, you know? She's ready to jump onto the next battle.
Yeah, it's almost like she doesn't even notice. So this is one of the best pictures that we've got. So tell me about how, and keep it you know, PG-13.
Right,
but
right. Oh wow. Dave, come on. This looks like an elf, first of all. So Matt Smith is now ready to join the Rings of Power.
Well, this is where we make the joke that this looks better than any of the elves that we've seen on Rings of Power. But yeah, this is very much bad Legolas here. Hey Fede, let me get you to. Oh, yeah, okay, that was choking. Let me just wait a second for her to join again. But yeah, there's some serious bad Legolas energy going on here, and I'm going to need, as you can see, my wig part's in the middle. So I'm going to need a completely different wig in order to do any sort of Daemon cosplay. I'm going to have to do, you know, the behind the ears thing and stuff. So I'm not there yet. I'm still reading Rhaegar, technically, the readingest Rhaegar that ever did read. And let me see here. I think I got Fede calling in. Looks like you are muted. It's a long way to Italy, guys. It's Are you back?
I should be.
Yeah, it's still got mad lag though. Do you have any other windows open? Do you have roommates that are on the internet you can kick off, or?
No, nothing else. And it decides to stop working tonight.
Okay, well, see, it's possible you could lower your image quality or rate in order to get better audio quality. I don't know if you have any options like that in the window that you're being given. But yeah, it started
Let
choking
me
on what you were saying too, unfortunately.
see.
Because I really need to get your thoughts on
Oh,
on
about
bad
now.
Legolas, Daemon Targaryen here.
Yep. Has anything
hashtag
changed?
hashtag Daemon is an elf cop. Okay, give me
Let me
some
look
audio and
again.
let me see where you got. See what you got. And she's gone again. All right, so we'll just give that a second. In any case, so we've seen a few pictures of Daemon out in the streets, roughing things up. We got this new one here, and we got this one here. And essentially, we know what Daemon's doing. He's doing his Prince of the City deal. He's beating people up. He's chopping off hands and legs and cocks of the rapists. And he's basically doing the harsh justice. And we've got Fede back. Hey, he looks a little snappier. What's going on?
Hi. How is it looking now?
Way better. What happened?
Okay. Nothing happened. I just prayed the gods.
Okay, the gods are pleased. And of course, the gods of old Valyria, we know some of their names because many of the Targaryen dragons are named after Valyrian gods. So Vhagar, Velaryon, Meraxes, Syrax or Syrax, whichever you. See, to me, Syrax is Mortal Kombat and Syrax is a dragon. So I'm very confused when they say Syrax. I'm like, Syrax wins. Fatality. But the dragon will hand out some fatalities. So thoughts on bad elf, Legolas is a cop, whatever version of
Bad
that.
elf cop. I'm trying to figure out. I'm kind of confused that because we've seen Matt Smith in a bunch of different length wigs. Really, we've seen I think 3 or 4 different wigs in terms of length because you're supposed to figure out when things are taking place.
So the long hair is first. Long hair is first.
But there's like a bunch of different long hairs.
Well, in the first episode, he has long hair, so that's all I can say. And at some point, he must get it cut. The Stepstones War, he's got it the shortest. It's all bushwhacked.
Okay.
Yeah. So probably it starts off really long, he cuts it short, and then it'll gradually grow back, I'm guessing. That way we can...
That would make sense.
He's kind of like a chia pet. He's like an elf and a chia pet and a cop. He's Daemon Targaryen. He's many things to many people. Go ahead.
I think we've seen a clip of him with very short hair, probably at Rhaenyra's wedding, like sitting in the little banquet hall there, and he has rather short hair. But yeah,
because that'll be after he comes back from the Stepstones.
Okay.
Yeah, because he goes
Great.
The first thing that's going to happen, his first exile is Heir for the Day. And his second exile is hanky panky with Rhaenyra, Criston Cole controversy, whatever that is. Yeah. So he's already working on. He goes and fights the war for the Stepstones after the first exile. So yeah, and so that's the Stepstones War. We know we're going to see that. We've seen a ton of footage from that, so that's going to be a big thing. That should be early. What's that?
And leaks as well, for photo sets last year when they were filming it. Oh no, we haven't seen anything.
I haven't looked at most of the leaks, but I'm just let's not discuss this.
Sure.
But it's definitely happening. And we've seen the guy with the crab feeder with his crab mask, and so they're gonna play him up a little bit as an enemy, and so. Anyways, this photo clearly is after Daemon's been out doing a little light police work. And he's got a sort of a playful smile on his lips. And that just gives me an excuse to tell you like how good the small council scenes are and how good the Daemon Otto dialogue is at times. It's ripping. It's ripping. Otto is a meme machine, let me tell you. I've already got one that I made for my new video. For those of you who know George Clinton, this is Sir Otto and the Unfunky Bunch here. Got the Maester and just a bunch of very serious, jowly people that can make that noise. So Very stern, very stern. Here's Sir Otto. This picture, I described it as Viserys looks like a plant that Sir Otto needs to water. That was my description of this picture. You can tell he's troubled. He's thinking about something. But check out that embroidery, man. That is sick. It looks like a black dragon there, so that's probably an ode to Velaryon.
Yeah.
On the lapel. But yeah, so let's talk about Sir Otto. We'll come back to Daemon. We've talked about Daemon a lot, but Sir Otto, you know, he's a second son. I think that's the important thing to remember. And him and Daemon are both second sons. And the whole thing in Westeros with the second son is like the firstborn inherits. So Otto's older brother is the Lord of Hightower, very important. And Otto is just left to make his own way in the world. And so he's done pretty well. He's become hand of the king to Jacaerys, and now he's in King's Landing, and he's got Alicent, his daughter, there. Very mild spoiler. You should well, I'm pretty sure everyone knows that Viserys has two, you know, he remarries. At one point, his first wife dies, and Alicent is who he remarries. So if that's a spoiler, then I apologize, but that's basically going to be set up in the first episode. You're going to know about that. And that's probably even the HBO character description. We've seen pictures of Alicent with the king. So Alicent marries the king. And that's, so essentially, you know, I made the video about, you've seen my Alicent video, right?
Yeah.
It's okay if you haven't, but okay, we'll go with you have seen it. You know, the main thing I was looking for were angles to where Alicent could be somewhat sympathetic, because it's easy to read the external description of the story and essentially blame everyone that goes to war. And Alicent has a hand in starting the war, so she's easy to blame. But I was looking for the sympathetic angle, and right away it's like, well, she's a teenager and her father is kind of using her as a political pawn. So let's talk about the psychology behind that, because that's pretty, like, we've seen that a little bit through Sansa's eyes, but Sansa was a hostage. So it was like an openly hostile situation. Alicent is in something much more complex, isn't she?
Absolutely. And we've seen that even in the trailer, in the last trailer that we saw, where I am blanking on the exact words, but Otto says, like, something, and then she says, "We were never one," right? What is it that he says?
Oh, well, it's something about her and Rhaenyra having hearts that are one, and then they're like, yeah, not really. That reminded me of the, like, Rhaenyra and Alicent, they're best friends in the way that you're best friends with your childhood best friend, and then you grow up and you're like, actually, we didn't have that much in common. I think it's that kind of BFFs, but go ahead.
Yeah. Well, let's start with Otto. You did point out something that I feel is very significant to his character, which is he is a second son. So of course he comes from a prominent family, but he is not the firstborn. So he has already risen up in the world basically as much as he can, right? By becoming hand of the king to Jacaerys, and that's basically already as far as you can get. Especially because Jacaerys was already so old, so you would expect Otto to basically be ruling in all but name. And then, okay, so I want to stop here for a second. Obviously, I quite mislike Otto and this family, but I want to try and be fair, right?
Appreciate that. Appreciate that. That's nice of you.
Yeah, I'm gonna say thank you. I'm gonna say one thing for him. Every man probably on this show, let's say every man wants to leave his mark in the world, and of course everybody would love to see his children or grandchildren on the Iron Throne. Like, that's something that everybody shares. Like, there would be very few people in Westeros who wouldn't wish for that, you know, if they could attain it somehow. So I'm gonna say this one thing for Otto, you know, like, he sees a chance and he seizes it. So I'm gonna say, like, he's not the most evil man in the world for wanting that, because I feel like in his position most people would probably do something similar or wish for something similar. So that's what I'm going to say at the beginning.
Yeah, I made that point too, because I've taken a very moral angle on this story at times, saying, you know, all these High Lords, their only responsibility really is to ensure the common good, make sure that the people are safe and that war doesn't break out. And so they all get a failing grade if a giant civil war breaks out, which is what happens, obviously.
Right.
But at the same time, you have to be able to switch into the sort of medieval context that they are in, and the same thing with Rhaenyra and all those characters. Like, in a sense, Rhaenyra is, well, you could say, well, she's the heir to the throne. She pursues her claim. That's not her fault. She has a right to do that. Well, yeah, but if pursuing your claim throws the realm into war, then that's also a level of culpability that has to be considered too. So you do have to sort of switch context and be able to consider, like, yeah, any high lord of a powerful family is going to be trying to climb the ladder and play the Game of Thrones. So in that context, is Otto any worse than anyone else? Does he murder people? Does he lie? Is he doing the Littlefinger thing and defrauding the treasury? So there's different standards to hold people to, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
And that said, tell us how you really feel.
Yeah, no, that said, especially, from things that we've heard from, I think, Emily Carey in particular, who plays young Alicent, she has said a couple times that Alicent has a weird relationship with her dad because, yeah, he's using her as a pawn mostly, and they probably don't even really have a relationship because he only sees her as a chance for advancement. And not that she doesn't want to be married to the king, but I feel like she, one of the other thing that Emily said is she at Comic-Con said, I mean, just think about the fact that Alicent is an orphan. She doesn't have a mother. Obviously, we don't know anything about how that came about. And obviously, that's the most common thing that could happen to a person in that fantasy/Middle Ages setting is, of course, your mother dies either of childbirth or, an illness, super easy. So it's not like being an orphan is the worst thing in the world.
Healthcare is not the best. Yeah, it's not.
Yeah, right? So it's not like it's that uncommon, but it definitely does probably play a big role in her psyche as well. If, her mother's not there and her father's not thinking about her as a human being, but only as a chance for advancement, that surely must do something to her internally. So,
yeah, because she's so young. She's like somewhere between 16 and 18. In the book, she first serves Jacaerys when she's 14, and she's 16 when she's proposed. No, I think it's 18 when she marries Viserys. So, yeah, that's the thing is, like, I grew up kind of slow, I would say. ADHD people develop a little slow. I grew up in Christian school too, so I was like a little bit sheltered, not totally, but just a little bit. Like at the age of 15, 16, I didn't know anything about how adults acted or worked or anything like that. So obviously these characters here, like Rhaenyra and Alicent, they're not, they didn't grow up in a private school. Like they grew up in King's Landing. So they are hip to the machinations of court life in the Game of Thrones, but at the same time, they're not fully developed as adults. Like they just hit puberty like a few years ago. Mm-hmm. They're still trying to figure out how the world of adults works. They know that like people are cruel and shit is messed up, but like, yeah, this is like Alicent hasn't like had a bunch of dating experience or anything, and now she's supposed to like woo the king, or we don't know how that's going to play out, but certainly from Otto's perspective, he seems to be encouraging her to be like, yeah, it's a dangerous game, but let's play. Maybe you could win. You get in there.
Yeah.
It's kind of messed up. So
that's another thing, because at the end of the day, Viserys marries Alicent because he wants to. The council doesn't necessarily propose her as an option. They tell him to marry Laena, Velaryon, because that would kind of heal the drift there with the Velaryons and Driftmark, and they do offer up a couple of other possibilities. But it says in Fire and Blood that he has taken a liking to Alicent, and he's kind of basically fallen in love with her. So she definitely has probably played her part. Apart from being beautiful, she was there. She probably kind of
so I'm definitely curious.
That she was doing all she could do.
Well, I'm definitely curious to see, and of course, with everything in Fire and Blood, so which version of the events will they go with? Yeah, I'm curious to see if there's actual natural affection that develops there, or if it's purely like Alicent is pulling one over on Viserys because she's supposed to. And Viserys is like taken with her, but she's basically, just running a game on him. I'm not sure. There's a pretty big age gap at first, so it seems a little awkward. We'll have to see how it develops over.
Especially because it'll be Emily Carey that he marries, not Olivia Cook. So there will be that kind of stark contrast there, where she goes from playing with Rhaenyra to marrying her dad. So that's gonna be a lot.
A little awkward, yeah. It's definitely gonna put strain on Rhaenyra and Alicent's relationship. One expects too. So, and the other interesting thing that I've said in my spoiler-free review is that Rhaenyra and her mother, Emma Arryn's relationship is more developed. And that I actually have an Emma Arryn picture.
Yes.
Right here.
And this clip, it was a half a second clip, but it warmed my heart to no end.
It was a very, very fond smile that he gave his wife, and there's very genuine affection that you can see between them. So I'm glad that they portrayed the relationship that way. And there's some really sweet moments with Rhaenyra and her mother as well. And that's all stuff that was not in Fire and Blood. So it's kind of what I've been telling people, like, this is going to be a really fun show to watch because every scene is actually going to be pretty fresh, even though we have a broad idea of what probably happened over the course of things. We don't have much dialogue. We don't have much of these interpersonal scenes. So it's really, really fun to see it play out. Whereas with Game of Thrones, a scene might start and you can be like, oh, this is that scene. I wonder how they do it. And it's still fun to watch to see it play out. But when these scenes are happening on House of the Dragon, like you don't know really most of the time what's going on. So,
right, because of the nature of the book, Fire and Blood isn't a novel. So you know that A happens and B happens, but you have to, stuff has to happen in between, and that's where they're going to surprise us, I hope. And I have full faith in the showrunners.
Cool.
But yeah, this clip right here, what I immediately thought, and I could be completely wrong, but I thought this could be like maybe the council at Harrenhal or something like that, and maybe people are cheering on him or whatever, and he's like a little shy and he's like looking at her. I'm excited.
Yeah, Emma Arryn is definitely one of the show stealers in the first episode. So I was very pleased with how they realized the character. And also made me think about the fact that some of these characters that we see on the show might only be on 1 or 2 episodes because of the time jumping. Characters such as a favorite of both of ours, one, Laena Velaryon. I don't know how many episodes she's going to be on. The young Laena is in the early episodes, but older Laena might be post-time jump. I'm not sure how that's all going to lay out. But Laena is one of your favorite characters, so what do you love about Laena? And we're jumping ahead here. Laena Velaryon, of course, is the daughter of Rhaenys, the queen who never was, and Corlys Velaryon. She marries Daemon Targaryen at a certain point in the story. Mild spoilers, I guess. How's that? I'm not doing that well with the spoilers, but yeah.
Yeah, in fact, I was like, I don't know how much I can say.
Yeah. Let's come back to Laena later, I guess.
Okay.
I get excited. I like Laena too. She rides Vhagar.
Yeah,
Come on.
My eyes just lit up when you pulled up the picture. I was like,
I think I'm just playing with your emotions. I should stop. All right. So we've said a fair amount about Alicent. But so there's a couple other pictures that are certainly very compelling. One does have to wonder about these murals in King's Landing.
What's going on?
Well, it's very Greek inspired, Roman, very yes. So this is a good one here. This is apparently.
Wait, Can I just say something about the previous one? Like, I just want to finish your thought. It's not that weird in a medieval setting or, again, in a Greco-Roman setting. That wouldn't be so weird at all to display nudity or even sex.
Grow up, LML.
Totally
grow
normal.
up.
Yeah, so I'm excited to see, where this is. Exactly, but yeah, I mean, don't be alarmed, people. This is fairly okay and
Ah,
normal
so
and
it's
regular.
medieval realism. I see. Well,
Right,
to be
right.
honest, it's the other one. The other painting was a little more like, whoa, what's going on there? But yes. So then we got this one here where they are in.
Yes.
This looks like Rhaenyra getting ready for her wedding. You can see her fancy Byzantine hat, collecting candle wax there on the table. And that's her robe that she wears. So pretty.
This one really got people talking.
Go ahead.
Uh, yeah, no, this one really got people talking because I've seen people being really alarmed on Twitter about this. Oh my God, like, what are they doing? Are they making them, romantic in any sort of way? I personally don't think that is the case. I mean, I would hope, very much hope, that Rhaenyra is shown to have an interest in girls, hopefully with Laena. But I honestly do not think at all that this is where they're going with Alicent, and I think this is just a sisterly moment that they're sharing, especially because, as you said, this should be Rhaenyra's wedding day, so it would be a very emotional moment, an
Yeah, Rhaenyra
emotional
has
scene. So of course,
she has enough affairs
go.
going on at this point in her life. Come on. It's like Harwin and maybe Daemon and maybe Criston. Like, yeah, no. I do think they're just friends here. But especially just because of the read the read I get on Alicent. But yeah, no, everyone obviously has fun shipping people together, and that's great. That's fine.
Yeah,
But,
of course.
yeah, no,
Everybody's
this is
entitled to their own ship. But again, I mean, just like you said, Rhaenyra's already has so many affairs going on. I mean, Alicent is probably trying to get Viserys at this point. I don't see why it would be smart to also try and go for Rhaenyra at the same time.
that's a different that's a different story. No, and if you think about it, it makes sense to play up the Rhaenyra and Alicent connection because Rhaenyra doesn't have hardly anyone that she can confide in and trust. And I think that Alicent, being in a similar situation as Rhaenyra, being a similar age, maybe a little bit older, but they're both caught in the middle of all these machinations of the Game of Thrones.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty easy to see how they would become, friends of the moment at the very least. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Circumstantial. And I mean, I do think it would be interesting also to see if maybe Alicent witnesses any of those, sweet moments between maybe Viserys and his daughter, or just seeing how proud he is of Rhaenyra. And, on the other side, Alicent doesn't have that with her father, as far as we know. So the fact that, I do want to think that, I'm not saying like Alicent falls in love with Viserys or anything, but it wouldn't be hard to come to care for him because he is a kind man and, gentle. He's not, one of the bad ones to oversimplify things.
Yeah, I don't. There was something really interesting in the first episode, and I can't even talk about it. But it's the Alicent character is going to be fascinating, and the way that she handles being caught in the middle is going to be really interesting to watch. And I could tell already the show is picking up on that tension and is like enjoying it and having fun with it. So, yeah.
That's great. I mean, I just love the idea. Alicent has to be a polarizing character. She can't just be, this gold digger or whatever. Like she has to have layers. This one. I mean, okay, like let me tell you something. She goes from reading to dying Jacaerys to reading to Rhaenyra. That feels like a glow up here.
Yeah,
I think
and yet you have to remember also like the tremendous time that's going to pass. We're going to see these characters pass 15 years or 20 years or more of their lives. So think about the things you wanted and aspired to when you were 16 or wherever it was. For me, that's more than 20 years ago because I'm old. But yeah, I mean, just think about how much you change over time. So the other quote is like, Rhaenyra said, "Oh, well, I'm going to make a new order." That's not something that we ever heard from Rhaenyra in Fire and Blood. However, that's not something the Maesters would necessarily write down. So you have to keep that in mind. And then it's like, well, it makes sense for young Rhaenyra to be more aspirational and idealistic about, well, I'm going to make it so all women can inherit. And then by the time she's older, it's like, well, yeah, but if I try to change the law, then all of my allies might turn against me, and that's not so easy. And how do I handle this? Maybe it's not the right time, and let me just get my, ass on the Iron Throne first, and then maybe we could see about changing things. So you can see how the sort of you grow up and become more pragmatic and cynical. That's going to happen to all these characters, especially the ones that they're showing us as young people.
Of course. I mean, I feel like that line that she has in the trailer about creating a new world order, that kind of had to be there, echoing Dany's line about breaking the wheel. I feel like that's kind of an echo there. Maybe, I mean, we'll see in context if it has anything to do with it, but like as a line in itself, it reminded me of Dany saying that right away.
Yeah, and that's obviously intended, to
Right,
remind us
as
of
a
that.
parallel.
Yeah, so we'll just have to keep an eye on what happens to that sentiment. And I'm
Definitely.
sorry, guys, I'm playing with my balls off screen, so I apologize. It's just that it's so smooth and yeah, so it's a dragon ball. And it has a Z on there probably if I look. All right, so let's go to some more pictures here.
Yeah, wait, one other
Oh,
thing that I wanted to say about this picture is that I think we saw a close-up of the book somewhere, like in a different clip, and I seem to remember it talks about Nymeria. So really excited about that. I hope that they're reading about Nymeria. Maybe Alysanne is reading about, oh, this pretty badass warrior princess, this could be you or whatever. And it's obviously an Easter egg for us if the Nymeria show ever gets picked up, which I really hope is the case.
that one's got to be picked up. That's too good of a
Yes.
show. It's the best one. It has all the different locations. The war with Valyria, the Sithorios creepiness. Like I've got to get Yeen and like the Jamestown like vanishing of Yeen, the Roanoke not Jamestown, the Roanoke. You know that legend?
I think so.
You're not from America, so you may not have heard about the Roanoke colony, but that's one of them early colonies from the British. Yeah, it disappeared. Basically, is what happened. It was one
Like
of the,
your accent.
it was one of the early colonies, and basically some people set up shop on an island, and some other colonists went back to England for the winter. It came back the next spring. Everybody was gone. No trace, no sign, nothing. Only a word carved into a tree that said Croatoan. Nobody knows what that word means, and that's it. And we still haven't figured out what the fuck happened to him. So that, I believe, is where George got the story of Yeen and Nymeria's colony, that like they went back one time and they just weren't there anymore. And they're like, okay, it's time to go. So anyways, that's that story.
Yeah.
That's American history right there.
Thank you, Professor.
And okay, so that's adult. So this is there you can see the septarian there in the dish.
Yeah.
So this is adult Rhaenyra now. She's at the small council.
Alysanne.
Alicent. That would be Alicent. I know the characters. I've read the book. Quiet. Yeah, so that's Alicent. She's obviously looking troubled here. So this might be they're discussing who the heir is. This is further on down the line. She probably has kids by now. So we won't talk about that too much, but you can see the situation like 10, 15 years gone by. Yeah, it's still stressful and tense.
And she's wearing green.
And she will always be wearing green, apparently, just so the audience can understand, I guess. So here we have Corlys and Rhaenys getting some bad news, it would appear.
Yeah. They've probably been woken. Like they look like they were in bed and these are their robes. They're mommy and daddy, basically. We love them. Favorite characters probably of the show. I mean, the bad news here could really be anything. With them, it's hard to figure out the timeline, like where we are. This could be, anybody close to them dying. I don't want to spoil anything. This could be. No, I can't. Okay.
There's
You
a
tell
lot
me
of
how far I can
people.
go.
There's a lot of people that die in the story. So this is probably, and a lot of times when the people die, there's extra bad news because of the ramifications of the death. So it's like so and so died, and also now that means this bad thing is happening. So yeah, there's a lot of bad news that happens. But how about those pajamas, dude?
So fancy. I want them.
Those Velaryons are not. They do not stint. They spare no expense.
They really don't. I think HBO should start that line and they should sell it.
Just call it Velaryon. Yeah, just bring it to me. I'd wear all that stuff for sure. So let's talk more generally about Corlys and Rhaenys. This is a great one here. Rhaenys with the amazing silver blue dress there. It's so hard not to just fawn over the clothes. But and then you can see the very cool braiding of the hairstyle. But yeah, let's talk about these two. And this is probably a good time to go back to my family tree that I've meant to show at the beginning and didn't show. So this is who everybody is. All right. And essentially Jacaerys and Alysanne is where this starts. They have a bunch of kids, but the only ones that you really need to concern yourself with are the three that I've highlighted here. Aemon, Alyssa, and Balon. Okay, so Aemon is the firstborn male child that lives to adulthood. He's the heir for a long time. He's well-loved. He's very accomplished. He rides Caraxes. He's Caraxes' first rider. And he marries Jocelyn Baratheon, who is half Velaryon, by the way. She is the child of Robar Baratheon and Alyssa Velaryon. Alyssa, who previously was the wife of Aenys and the mother of Jacaerys. So Alyssa is kind of an important figure. She remarries Robar Baratheon later in life, gives birth to Jocelyn, and then so Jocelyn is now a half Velaryon, or Velaryon if you want to say, Baratheon. So Aemon marries Jocelyn, and that's where Rhaenys comes from. So Rhaenys is the child of Jacaerys' firstborn son, and that's why she has a good claim to the throne in 101 AC. And then the other claimant is Viserys, and you can see he is the child of Balon and Alyssa. Now, Balon and Alyssa are a very cool romantic couple. I don't want to get sidetracked into them. I talked about them on the Targaryen family live stream that I did a couple months ago. But yes, they're very cool. Alyssa has mismatched eyes and a broken nose, so she's kind of like imperfect but very charismatic. And so their kids are Viserys and Daemon. So those are basically three cousins, the three Targaryen cousins, Rhaenys, Viserys, and Daemon. And that's where the story starts, really. And of course, Rhaenyra is the child of Viserys and Aemma Arryn there. And Daemon marries everyone and has kids with lots of people. So that's her family tree. And by the way, shout out to the original artist, Polly M. I have obviously tacked on the Targaryen, the pictures from House of the Dragon for some of these people. But that is our family tree here. So Corlys, of course, he is from House Velaryon. As we know, House Velaryon comes from Valyria. That's why they have the white hair. They would have purple eyes if we were doing purple eyes, but we're not. So, the purple glasses are in memoriam. But yeah, so Corlys is currently like the richest man in the kingdom. That's usually the Lannisters. The Lannisters are the richest family in the time of Game of Thrones. They're also the richest family before then, too. So it's only briefly that Velaryon eclipses them because of Corlys's 9 voyages. So
it's literally thanks to him.
Yeah, I'm talking way too damn much. Tell us about Corlys.
No, that's okay.
No, I just keep going. I'm used to being alone on these live streams.
You do a great job of it. But yeah, Corlys is a great seafarer. He gets on a ship for the first time when he's super young. He captains a ship and he goes on these great, grand 9 voyages that are super famous. He basically visits every corner of the known world. I was going to say Earth, but it's not really a thing. And he brings back lots and lots of riches and makes House Velaryon the richest in Westeros. And when he, then it's kind of high time for him to get married at one point. And of course, he's not going to settle for anyone, kind of less. So he goes and marries a princess who should have been a queen, Princess Rhaenys, who, as Dave was saying, gets passed on in the line of succession because she is a woman.
And they got married. They got married before she was passed over. So
that's true.
So he was marrying someone who was potentially the heir to the throne. To be the queen. So yeah, that's pretty high status. That's
very true. He could have been a prince consort. And you know, everybody was fine with it. It's not like they eloped or anything. Rhaenys was very beloved by her grandmother, Good Queen Alysanne, by the way, and she very much wanted Rhaenys to inherit. And that actually brought about a big rift between the king and queen at the time.
That's right, because at a certain point, her father Aemon dies on Tarth. I think it's 94 AC. Yeah. And then there's the dispute, who's going to be the heir? Is it going to be Rhaenys, or is it going to be the second-born son, Balon? Which also skips over Alyssa, you'll notice, because Alyssa is older.
And then saying that.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. It's, you know, facts, #facts. So that is the cause of one of the great quarrels, is when Balon is named the heir over Rhaenys, and Alysanne pieces out to Dragonstone for 2 years. So
it's like, I'm out. And that's when the incredible line that I hope makes it onto the show happens. That I think Mushroom says. What is it? If it takes a cock to rule, then let Mushroom have it, or something like that.
Yeah, his Mushroom busts out a super pro-feminist meme hashtag. He really does. It's really funny. I forget the exact line, but it's something about naughty bits. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't make you smarter to have yeah. Anyways, so one thing I will point out, Corlys was so rich, guys. He built a new capital city, or I don't know if city's the right word. It's like big town, small city. It kind of feels like, but the previous capital was on Driftmark was the new one was High Tide. What was the old one?
Not Spice Down. I forget what wasn't it like. It had a castle next to it, but I don't remember. I'm blinking.
I'm gonna look it up. But in any case, he built a new capital. The new one he built was High Tide, and one imagines that's the set that we're seeing when we see the Velaryon sort of castle, and there's that cool sea mural and the skulls on the pillars. That's all going to be at High Tide. That's nice. That's just been built in the last 30 years. And it's built from pale stone, the same material used to build the Eyrie, so white marble. And it looks like they've gone with a more tan, sandy-looking stone. But the point is, that's how rich he is. He's bringing in fancy quarried stone. He's like, imagine Corlys at the stonecutter shop, and they're showing him samples. Like, no, it's not really nice enough. Let's go with the white marble, don't you think? Yes, the white marble.
Let's go with the most expensive one. I can afford it.
Exactly. So its slender towers are crowned with roofs of beaten silver, which shine in the sun. So this is almost like ostentatious display of wealth, just like everything else with Corlys. The old seat, where was the old seat? It was just called Castle Driftmark. So it was named after the island. Yeah, that's why I couldn't remember. So there you are. So that's how rich Corlys is. He built a new capital city. And he got his wife some nice dresses, clearly. So that's how he's rolling. And there's one of the things that Corlys and Rhaenys are going to serve as far as the function in the actual show is they give us a little bit of a connection to history, to the past, to people with more experience. Viserys is talking about the past mostly in the context of the Valyrian prophecy and all this stuff. But Corlys and Rhaenys, as this situation,
they've been around the block.
They've been around the block, and they know, they can spot these tensions that are building up, and they kind of know what people might be angling for. They know where some of these scenarios are going to lead when they play out. I said Littlefinger when I was like, oh, Rhaenys is kind of calculating and stuff. I should have said Olenna. That would have been the better comparison. Littlefinger is such a terrible person. I don't want to cast aspersions on Rhaenys, but the point is, she's not just like the sweet grandmother, and she's not just like, oh, badass dragon grandmother. Like, she is one of the most experienced politicians that are there. And that's how you should think about these people, as experienced politicians, essentially.
I'm so excited to see that side of her, because again, it's not something that we get to see in Fire and Blood, not because it's not there necessarily, just because, who would be talking about it, for the way that it's written, like, which one of our sources would know what Rhaenys is thinking unless it's in a council room or whatever. So I'm really excited to see that about her.
And most of the scenes we've seen with Corlys and Rhaenys, they're like getting news, they're deep in conversation, like they're always talking about crucially important stuff. So that kind of fits with what we're talking about here. And here's another shot. This is from the Harrenhal Council. And so you can see them waiting. You can see the side shot of the maesters that are carrying the voting box or whatever it is. So very cool. Great outfits. There's Lionel Strong on the right. And here's another cool small council. So you can see, not to play up the Septarians as if they were the most important thing on the show or anything. I have one, by the way. I have one. You can see they start out in the little dish in the middle, and then they clank them down on the little plates. I don't know what it means. It just means it's time to quit screwing around, and it's time to drink wine and sort out the affairs of the kingdom. And you can
talk business.
Right, and there's cupbearer Rhaenyra. We know that's an important part of her identity, right?
It is, because, at the end of the day, this is kind of an excuse for Viserys to have her, like, inside the council room ever since a very young age and be like, okay, you sit here and you stand here and listen to what we have to say, the way that I run this bitch. And, you kind of, he could have said, oh, now go read with Alicent or whatever. No, he's like, you come here in the council room and see how it's done.
So this is interesting because this is the kind of position where you put your heir or your kid in this position hoping that they'll learn, but they're also like a kid too. So maybe she's not paying attention all the time, or maybe she is. It's an interesting dynamic to play with. And then you have to see the way that people talk around her when she's there, when she's not there. Maybe it changes. So all of these small council scenes, I feel like the strongest part of early Game of Thrones was people sitting around talking, kind of like these confrontational moments, small council meetings, and they're definitely keeping up that tradition. Like we see the Otto Daemon confrontation, we see the Viserys Daemon confrontation. These small council meetings are frequently confrontational, and you can really see the personalities come up here. Viserys, Otto, when Daemon is there, which is like some of the time, so it's going to be one of the highlights.
Can't wait.
Okay, here you go. This is not fair, but how does this picture make you feel?
Not great. Not a fan.
Oh, you're not a fan of this guy, huh?
I'm a fan of the actor. Great kid. Great guy. Fabian, you're doing amazing, kid. But I don't know how much we can say about Criston, in terms of spoilers, so you tell me. But, yeah.
Yeah, so let's go ahead. We're an hour in, so let's go ahead and switch this over to mild spoilers. Okay. This will not be leaks. This will not be us giving you the details of the end of the story from Fire and Blood, but we're going to go ahead and talk about some Fire and Blood so that we can discuss Sir Criston Cole. Yeah, so if you're trying to remain totally unspoiled, you've probably already tuned out by now, but definitely it's probably all right, go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Fabian Snackle, go ahead.
Criston, obviously, what we know about him, he is, not from a super noble house. He's Dornish, right?
He is Dornish in the story. Yeah, he's sworn to House Dondarrion, so that's in the marches, but he himself is Dornish, yeah.
So he doesn't come from power or money or anything like that. And, you know, the fact that he already gets here this far is great. You know, he's, again, made it in life. And he is, I mean, obviously kind of besotted with Princess Rhaenyra. He becomes her champion, her sword and shield. And then something changes and he suddenly hates her and switches sides. And, I mean, you know, if we are to believe one of our sources, it's because she tried to seduce him and have him kind of lose his vows there. Obviously, that's not the version that I'm going with if I have to pick which one to believe, but that would be kind of the opposite, where he is sort of in love with her and mad when she refuses to either, you know, run away with him or just because she is choosing somebody else.
Yeah, well, so if there's any kind of affection that develops between these two, and I think it's safe to say that there is. We can see from the one scene. Yeah, we can see from the one scene where they're riding horses in the woods and then having some very intimate conversation. Like they probably
by the fire.
They probably just banged. But point is, yeah, if there's any romantic feelings between these two, it can't go anywhere. She's the princess. Her romantic partner is a matter of state. And he's sworn to chastity as a Kingsguard. So this is obviously a relationship that can't go anywhere, that no one can know about. So those kind of things always, like, there's no happy ending for that. So it's going to go sideways.
But
go ahead.
For him to be mad over it and angry at her and suddenly become her, you know, fiercest foe, that's not a great move. You know, like that's, you know, what did you expect?
Yeah, that it seems like kind of an emotional overreaction. So we will have to see what causes that. Yeah, I'm dying to know. I really am. Because it feels like there has to be an insult, not just a rejection. Although, I don't know, spurned suitors can go kind of crazy just if they don't get what they want. That is true. But it does seem like maybe there was some insult. Maybe Daemon was involved. That's what I'm thinking, is that there's some Daemon factor in here that just is going to make everything worse. So we will see.
It's also interesting how in the book, Alicent starts off by saying Sir Criston is protecting Rhaenyra from her enemies, but who is protecting her from Sir Criston? And then like 10 days later, they're thick as thieves. Criston and Alicent, and he becomes her, you know, fiercest.
Yeah, so that brings up an interesting question. Does Alicent sleep with anybody besides Viserys?
Okay. So
I got the hands. So we got the hands. So many
possibilities.
Oh boy.
That was such an Italian moment there. So many possibilities. Okay. So let me say one thing. I know everybody's talking about Daemon, of course. And this was always a thing. Like, this is always something that I've, like, seen in the fandom. The possibility of, because Daemon would do it, obviously, to spite his brother. Like, of course, yes, it's something that he would do. But I don't think it's something that he has done. And I don't think it's something that has happened. If anything, and this is where I am theorizing, tinfoiling, I know that the casting for Aemon is super spot on, and that has to mean something because Ewan really, really does look like Matt Smith a lot. But also, I mean, this is a highly incestuous family, so it would be normal for him to look like his uncle.
That's
anyway.
True.
Like, that wouldn't,
That's true.
You know, it wouldn't be too crazy for uncle and nephew to look alike. But having said that, I do like the idea of Alicent fangirling over Daemon, maybe with Rhaenyra, maybe without Rhaenyra, I don't know. Just like, oh my god, he is so dashing, so handsome, so beautiful, so hot, so fierce, you know, all of that. And maybe, you know, like, who wouldn't? He's right there.
And it's also like, it's one of those repression things where it's like, Alicent has a lot of pressure on her. She's very self-composed. She's a rule follower. Quote unquote, says I forget if it was Emily Carey or the other actress, but I think it was Emily Carey that said Alicent's a rule follower. So maybe it's like all that repression and all that self-control maybe it's like the one time she went with her passionate feelings, and you know, her and Daemon were a thing.
I don't think that ended up happening. I think he would have rejected her, because and that's why she hates him. So
I don't know. I don't think Daemon is kicking her out of his bed for eating crackers. I think Daemon's because Daemon also would look at it as a way to tweak Sir Otto's nose. That's the other motivation,
Yes, very true.
Yeah.
If she was already married to Viserys, I don't think Daemon would do it, but if she wasn't, maybe.
What about Criston though? Like you just mentioned, you just sort of put the thought in my brain. You said,
that's such a Cersei move to do. Cersei with the Kettle Blacks.
That's right. You're right. That could be a parallel because there are, even though Alicent is a more sympathetic character than Cersei, she does have a lot of Cersei parallels. Yeah. So
I think Alicent is more refined than that. I don't think she needs to resort to sleeping with anybody to get them on her side. I mean, she could. Obviously, anybody would want to sleep with her. I would want to sleep with her, but I don't think she has to do it, especially with Criston, to get him on her side, because he's already on her side automatically because he now hates Rhaenyra and and the children Rhaenyra has that are not his.
Yeah, so, like I said, there's the reaction from Cole is so violent. It's such a swing that it just makes you wonder, like, what? There is some secret there. It's more than just being rejected. Like, I feel like there's an extra factor in there. So who knows what it is? But yeah, this thing's gonna get really tangled and messy, as you can see, as time goes on. So, and yes, just real quick, I am fast on the banhammer. For those of you who are new to the chat, just be nice, or else I'll just gonna delete you. That's just how it works. I just like to keep it nice around here, and the best way to do that is to kick people out who aren't nice. I don't feel like it needs a lot of explanation when you're in a chat online. Like, either you're treat people politely, or you like to kind of start shit and say really negative things, and if that's how you're gonna roll, probably gonna have to find another YouTube channel. So that's all. It's not really an emotional thing. It's just how I run the show. So there you go. Complain if you want. I don't care. Okay, so now let's talk about Laena, since we're into the spoilers, the semi-spoiler zone. This is adult Laena here. Excuse me. Sorry. Take it away.
Okay. I want to say one thing about the actress who plays Laena. Savannah Stain. She is incredible. I've seen her in her other show that she did a couple years ago, Intergalactic.
Okay.
Beautiful, fantastic. You guys should watch it. It's only one season because it was canceled by BBC right away, but beautiful. I highly recommend. It's set in space, so if that floats your boat. Yeah, and she was really, really good, which is why, part of why I would hope Laena would kind of get some space in this show.
So this is her. This is her on that show.
Yes. Beautiful.
Yeah, I looked it up. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. She's got like a scar. She's in some post-apocalyptic reality or something. So, like, yeah. I haven't seen the show, but I imagine you can get to see what the actress can do.
Definitely, because she's the protagonist. She's the main character there. So.
Oh, okay.
If in the next 2 weeks. Oh, actually, 2 weeks. It comes out in 2 weeks. House of the Dragon. Wow, that's mind blowing. Sorry. If in the next 2 weeks you want to see what Laena's actress is like, you can go and watch that show. Sorry, I got excited.
That's why I have you here. That's why I have you. It's 2 weeks. It's crazy. It's only going to be 2 weeks, and I'm just like, at this point, I just want the show to happen, so I'm not the only one going, this show is awesome, and because I kind of sound like a dork at this point, with the level of excitement that I have for the show. So yeah, I'm anxious for everyone else to see it, just so I'm not alone on this island anymore. But Laena, okay, so Laena's not going to be in the story for very long, and I have a feeling that she's going to make a big impact, and that's why they're not showing her much in any of the trailers. Like, they're saving it, and it's kind of going to go off like a bomb. But The other thing I noticed about Laena is that it seems that Baela has been aged up, and she has already been cast in season 1. I don't know if she's going to be twins with her sister anymore. She might be older.
Oh.
And I think they're doing that so that when Laena exits stage left, there's somebody else to pick up that torch. So I have a feeling that Baela's role in the war might be played up a little. She might be a little older. So that's something to look forward to. Then Baela is Laena's daughter, by the way, if you didn't know. So.
Okay. You know what? I actually hadn't heard or thought about that possibility at all of Baela being aged up, but it does make sense with something that I noticed a while ago in one of the council scenes that we've seen. I think in the first teaser, maybe. It's the Blacks Council, and you can see a bunch of people around the painted table. And I think it's Rhaenyra. Oh yes, Bethany and Tonya. I'm so excited to see her.
So yeah, that's Baela.
Yeah.
So.
And I don't know if you have that image anywhere right now, but it's the council, and it's kind of taken from afar, so you can see everybody, and you kind of try to figure out who everybody is. And you have Rhaenyra, obviously at the head of the table, and somebody's next to her, and I think it's Baela. And everybody else is kind of like apart from them. And, you know, the question everybody was asking when that picture came out was, why is Baela right there with Rhaenyra? And I don't know, I was like, oh, maybe they're announcing that Baela can now ride dragons, and that's a big asset. So it would, yeah, this one, exactly. It would make sense if she was aged up a little bit.
Yeah. So I think that is
her.
I think Baela has braids that are piled up like that, because there's another scene where they're all at dinner, and Daemon is
next to Daemon.
Yes. So, and
because then you can see Rhaena is in red or pink next to Rhaenys, her grandma. Yeah, right there.
Yep.
And Rhaenys is wearing armor, which I'm so excited to see. But yeah, I'm like, why would Baela be next to Rhaenyra? And maybe that could be why.
Yeah, I would say so, because she rides Vhagar. Or no, Baela doesn't. I'm sorry.
No.
Moondancer. Yeah, that's her mom rides Vhagar. Yeah. Because this would be the War Council, so this would be right at the end of season 1, you know, with the war about to start here. So, you know, one thing that I have said before, and I will say again, the scale of this show is bigger. I made the comparison to Dune. And I think this is a really good talking point, so I'm going to keep repeating it until some magazine quotes me. Dune, what Dune did for science fiction, House of the Dragon is trying to do for fantasy, meaning let's put enough money and creativity into it to where you don't see the limits anymore. It just seems huge, and like there's no you know, it doesn't look like a set anymore, but it really just starts to put you into the feel of an alien world. And that's, just compare this map table to the little dining room that we had in the last show. I mean, it had a cool wall carving and a cool view out on the bay, but that wasn't the map table room. You know, this is a lot closer, at least. So,
yeah.
And maybe make this a little smaller, but very cool. Definitely a cool scene. Also on Dragonstone, they're going to have like smoke and stuff being pumped out of the fissures in the rocks just to make it more like volcanic and stuff.
Wow.
So yeah.
But yeah, earlier, sorry, you had asked me before we decided not to talk about Laena right away. You had asked me what is it that, you know, we all like about her, because she is a pretty minor character in the book. She's not there for long, and you only know who she is, and then that she marries Daemon, and then that she has children and then dies, and that's really sad. But I feel like she has so much potential, and I really do hope that the show gives us a little bit more of her, because she really does embody the best of her mother and her father put together. You know, she is very graceful, but she rides Vhagar. Like, who does that? Literally nobody. Like, she was super young too when she bonded with Vhagar. I'm blanking on how young, but she
Yeah,
was super young.
we know that by the age of 12, she had already bonded with Vhagar. So, yeah.
Right.
And by the way, somebody commented earlier that according to the actual, the guy who fleshed out the Valyrian language, which is a thing, that Vhagar is correct. Vhagar is the correct way to say it. I will not go back to saying it that way because I don't want to fight a war over it. And Daenerys says Vhagar on Game of Thrones, and so that kind of makes it canon. And things don't have to follow phonetic rules; they don't always. But I'm not crazy, you guys. That's the point. Okay, so so Laena is by the age of 12 when she is considered as a choice for Viserys to marry. She is already. They're talking about her like, oh, she's beautiful. She rides a dragon. She's got a fierce character like her father, the Sea Snake. So she's already impressive. And then when Daemon meets her and marries her, she's 22. So she's 10 years older by that point.
Because sorry, no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I think it's gonna be a nice little romance. When they go on that trip to Essos, and it's quite the thing.
In between, what happens is that she is betrothed to the son of an Essosi noble. I don't remember. Is he like
Sea Lord of
Lord
Braavos?
of Braavos? Yeah, okay. For the longest time, for like almost a decade, but then Corlys kind of doesn't want her to get married to him because he's embarrassing. And so they kind of keep, not they're like, okay, maybe we'll wait, but he never actually breaks the engagement, which I'm curious about because Corlys could. I mean, if he wanted to, it wouldn't be that big of an issue. But at any rate, what they do is obviously they get Daemon to decide that he wants to marry Laena, and then Daemon just insults the poor guy, and he has no choice but to fight him, and of course Daemon is going to prevail with Dark Sister. But
it's a great bit of writing.
Awesome.
It really is. Like, it's such a fun little story. Be like, oh yeah, it's a thing that would totally happen. You make a betrothal, doesn't quite work out. Time goes by. The other guy spends all his money, and he's just hanging around like a loser. And it's just like, oh, what do we do about this? And then Daemon's like, I know what to do. So it's going to be delicious. I'm sure they will play it up. It's such a big, quintessential Daemon moment there. So
yes, yeah. And I'm excited to see how the two of them interact, because at the end of the day, they did love each other. Of course, it was also a political match. You can't deny that. But they did care about each other a lot, and they were kindred spirits. So I really am curious to see if we get to see any of that. Is it just a political choice? Maybe we don't even get to see it, and we just hear that they got married. But
yeah, because that's a really good point. So Daemon is obviously the bad boy. If he was alive now, he'd wear a leather jacket like every day or whatever. But the point is, like, he has a dragon, so he's kind of the biggest version of that archetypal character that you could possibly imagine. So yeah, women are falling for him. Like, he's the rogue prince. Like, he's larger than life. He really is. And so I think the thing that Rhaenyra and Laena have in common in that what they like in Daemon is the same thing. Like, Laena and Rhaenyra are both true dragons as well. They love flying their dragons. They're fiery, whatever, however you want to go on and say all that stuff. So when they see Daemon is so unencumbered and like self-actualized. So I think he calls to the younger characters in that sense. They see Daemon as like, he's really in touch with his dragon, and so that pulls against the advice that these girls like Rhaenyra and Laena might be getting about, you got to do this and be responsible and be in control and the family and the politics. And then it's like Daemon's like, fuck all that. You just hop on your dragon, do what you want, so that he sort of just represents that energy. And that's a signpost. Like, that's an energy that calls to people. That's people rally to Daemon's cause. women are impressed with him. So like that's just his character. That's his magnetism. And obviously those kind of guys can get you in trouble too. But I remember one guy that I fell for in a leather jacket, and he really, no, I'm just kidding. But the chat's calling me a girl, so I just figured I'd roll with it. You can't look. You wear a Targaryen wig and you just feel pretty. I don't know what to say, guys. You should try it out.
Rhaegar.
So, in any case, so we flipped through a lot of these pictures, but let's go back and drill deeper into some of these characters, because I did build this as a character stream, and I feel like we've wandered into playing picture detective, which is fun. But let's see here. Who do we want to? Well, we talked about Alicent pretty good as far as her motivations. We talked about Otto. So we're talking about Daemon. One of the main things about Daemon's character that I think is interesting is that the Maesters and Otto in particular, they're always talking about being afraid of Daemon taking the throne and Daemon's ambition and all this stuff. But Daemon doesn't really strike me as an ambitious person. He's more about like respect and his own personal freedom and sort of doing what he wants, kind of. It's all like, is that your read of him? I mean, that's what I get from him.
No, absolutely. I do agree. But, I mean, there's one thing. Obviously, first of all, he loves his brother. They're in constant, maybe struggle, but they love each other. Daemon would never, think for a second to overthrow Viserys, okay? Like, let's put it out there. Because I feel like in the show, if you have Otto saying, oh, no, he's the worst, the people could think, oh, he might do a coup or whatever. No, Daemon would never hurt Viserys.
And he listens, too. He obeys every time Viserys tells him to do something. So it's not like that out of control or anything, really, at all. Yeah,
he's not. That's the thing. Like, he's not. I mean, would he be such a bad choice for the throne? Like, obviously, Team Rhaenyra, she deserves it. She needs to get it. But would it be? Like, I don't feel like he would be such a bad administrator. Yes, of course, he, and you talked about this, too, in your stream about him. He really wasn't doing a bad job, especially with the City Watch.
Yeah, because running a City Watch, that's tough. That's not just walking out of the street and backhanding people with your gauntlet, although clearly that's part of it. No, he equipped, he assessed a poor unit and was like, we need to make these changes. And then he made the changes and trained them up, and now they're effective. Like, that is really impressive, actually. And the more I read Fire and Blood and the more I looked at it, the more sympathetic I became to Daemon. Because at first I was like, this guy really is an asshole, and he just is trying to spike the punch or whatever. Like, literally, Daemon is a guy that would put LSD in the punch at the high school, like, prom. Like, that's fucking Daemon. But not that anyone should ever do that. Point is, like, he's actually really competent. And when you look at it, again, we can't be sure, but when you're reading Fire and Blood, you kind of have to do that exercise of, like, let's try to read this in the sympathetic to Daemon light. Let's read this into the sympathetic to someone else light, and just see how you can flex the story and see which way it could go. But yeah, I mean, would he make a good king? Probably. Here's the thing. Modern people,
if he was trying, because that's the thing, like, he has different jobs on the council too, and he's maybe not too fit. But at the end of the day, because it's not his main responsibility, if you were to give him the throne, I'm sure he would be good. He would actually try. And make
we don't even know. We just know that Sir Otto convinced Viserys that he wasn't good in those positions. He wasn't even there very long, though. Remember? He got ousted from both positions in less than a year. So he didn't really even get a chance to prove himself. But what I was going to say is that we modern people, we don't want a king. Like, a king's not good. We don't want to live in a medieval society. And we don't want a king that sits on a crown of swords and has a dragon to eat anyone who challenges his power. But that is the position. That is what a Westerosi king is. So would Daemon be a good king? Probably, yeah. Like, why not? Because he has the strength to hold that throne. Like, I'm reading over Fire and Blood right now, audiobook, but it counts as reading, by the way, for those of you. But there are some people who read audiobooks and feel bad, like, oh, I didn't actually read it, I just listened to it. Like, no, it's fine. It's the same thing, whatever. So I'm listening to Fire and Blood, and I'm getting through all the Maegor stuff, and the Aenys stuff. And you could see, like, Aegon the Conqueror holds it down for 37 years. And he fights a war at the beginning. He fights with the Dornish until 9 AC. There's really no more wars. No one challenges him. And as soon as Aenys takes the throne, the treasons sprout like weeds because Aenys is weak. And so this is kind of the thing. To be a medieval king of Westeros, you kind of have to be a barbarian. You kind of have to be willing to kill people who challenge your will. It's not a democracy. So that's the thing. Like, Maegor represents going way too fucking far on that end of the scale. Obviously, I am not a Maegor apologist. There are some out there. I'm tempted to make a Maegor video just to set this straight. The guy was a psycho. But point is, Aenys is the other end of the scale. Aenys was way too weak. And when Jaehaerys took the throne, he did have to put his foot down in a few places in order to make sure people respected him. So when you look at Viserys and Daemon, that is one of the conflicts between them, is that Daemon thinks Viserys is too weak to hold on to that throne. And we know that Viserys is a people pleaser. And being a people pleaser, that's not how Aegon conquered the Seven Kingdoms. He did lift up his enemies. He did allow people to keep their local traditions, but he killed thousands of people with his dragon first to increase his bargaining position. And so we're going to see that with Viserys and Daemon, that dynamic of, like, you know, what kind of strength does it take to be a king, and all that stuff. Yeah, the Maegor debate. Shit, I shouldn't have said anything. Now the chat is just gone. We're going to have it out about the Maegor one time. I keep seeing this, like, oh, Maegor was just doing what was needed. I was like, no, you did a little more than that. But another day. Yeah. So, thoughts on being a barbarian king of a sword throne?
Absolutely, I agree with you. Sword throne. I feel like they do, Viserys and Daemon do complement each other quite nicely, because one is, you know, a barbarian and one is kinder and the people pleaser, and they would have worked very well together if Viserys had made Daemon his hand. Like, I am sure of it.
You are very smart young lady, and that is definitely one of the conflicts that they're outlining in the first episode, is just that. And you can see Otto is basically driving a wedge between the two brothers. And you're right, the two brothers could potentially complement each other very well, but Viserys has to trust Daemon. And we can see that there is a little bit of, like, sometimes he's keeping him at arm's length, or a lot of times he is, and then he's sort of apologizing for him when he fucks up, but he's clearly not fully embracing Daemon, because in the past, the Targaryens have used Hand of the King for family. Like, Jaehaerys made both of his sons Hand of the King to help train them for kingship. So making Sir Otto the Hand, yeah, that's not keeping it in the family at all. And you also wonder about Viserys and Rhaenys. There's not a lot said in Fire and Blood about their relationship, but it doesn't really seem like Viserys was able to rely on Rhaenys for extra strength, because there was this tension between them of Viserys got chosen over Rhaenys, and that Velaryons are kind of on the outs, and they keep getting, you know, kind of shat on. So there's definitely, like, the three Targaryens. Remember, I went to that family tree and I said, Viserys, Daemon, and Rhaenys, these are three cousins. They are in charge of the dynasty, really, and they are not working together as well as they could. That's the bottom line. Yeah,
that's a problem. They should be working together.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's something that Paddy Considine said, the actor who plays Viserys, said at Comic-Con and in interviews as well. It was that he is fully aware that he, as a people pleaser, is trying to keep everybody together, you know, make sure that nobody fights, because the minute they, you know, the minute something happens, you know, hell is going to break loose. And again, if you think it in, you know, thinking about, oh, like the White Walkers are going to come, you can't have the Targaryens divided. You can have them fighting each other. You can have them losing dragons over who sits on the throne with swords, because we have major problems coming ahead.
So that makes me wonder. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Fede. It makes me wonder, like, how many people know about the secret, the prophecy? Like Viserys is obviously telling Rhaenyra in one of these scenes. Does Daemon know? Does Rhaenys know? Does Corlys know? Like, I wonder, because maybe if some of those other Targs knew about it, they would be more pulling in the same direction. So we'll have to see. I don't know the answer to that. So
I feel like Viserys would tell Daemon. Maybe to tell him, there are more important things than
there is
what you do.
Right in the trailer, there's that line from Daemon, "Dreams didn't make us kings, dragons did." So at some point, Viserys is definitely telling him about some kind of dream. Yeah, so.
But it could be about the dream that he has about placing my heir upon the Iron Throne, the stag, the thundering hooves. It could be about that.
Yep. It could be. So we'll have to see. Yeah, does Alicent know? That's another question. Does Viserys tell his wife?
Doesn't know.
Yeah, she's not a Targ, man.
He doesn't trust her enough. Also, yeah, she's not a Targaryen. Also, he doesn't trust her enough. But I mean, Rhaenyra knows, and she tells her children because the secret, goes down all the way to Rhaegar.
Well, I think Rhaegar rediscovered it. That's my guess, because we have Baelor the Blessed, and unless it went around him through one of the cousins or something, Baelor the Blessed, like, he burned all those books. The writings of Septon Barth, he burned them. So I think that if he was told about such a prophecy, he wouldn't have passed it on. And if it was written down somewhere, he might have gotten rid of it. So that's why when I read that bit about Rhaegar, it says, he found something in a scroll one day.
In a scroll.
So that seems like maybe Baelor didn't get them all. And it makes sense that that's what Rhaegar would have rediscovered, would be the same thing that Viserys is talking about now.
Makes sense.
Yeah. I made a video about that called Long Night Prophecy in case anyone wants to watch it. I need to run to the restroom real quick. What topic can I set you loose on for 60 seconds?
I don't know. Whatever you want. You pick.
We've got Jacaerys, Old Man Jacaerys. We've got Driftmark. Sailing scenes. We've got King's Landing. We got this throne room scene with the Gondor-like statues there.
Let's talk about Jacaerys. Let's pick it up from where we left it earlier.
Perfect. I'll listen and I'll be right back.
Okay. Alrighty. So, this is the Old King. This is 101, the Great Council at Harrenhal. I am so excited to see that. Pretty sure we see that in the first episode. That's probably the opening of the show, actually. Maybe that's how I would open it. I'm excited to see it. I mean, Harrenhal, if done well, and it looks from the trailer that they really, really did it well because it looks massive. Obviously, the show had to start from there. They couldn't just talk about the Great Council and not show it because it's really where everything starts. Where the seeds of the Civil War are sown. So I'm excited to see that. And we've seen other shots from this exact scene with Rhaenys and Corlys, and I think Viserys and Aemma as well. So it's pretty cool. You get to see the Old King. Obviously, all my desires and wishes to see Alysanne, probably we're never going to see her even in flashbacks. But you got Jacaerys here, who doesn't really want to take a decision because he's old and doesn't want the responsibility of who's going to rule after me. Welcome back.
Very well done. And yes, we've talked about it before a little bit in the House Targaryen. Am I muted?
I do have a question for you.
Okay, go ahead.
You're fine. I can hear you. No, my question is, am I misremembering? Because I might be making this up. Or was Jacaerys not at Harrenhal, like at all, in the book? I don't think he went.
Oh, sorry, delayed reaction. Praise Garth. Hallelujah. No, this is a change. In the books, he's not there, and
Perfect.
now he's there.
Okay, that's what I thought.
And I do want to tell everyone, don't get your hopes up. Like, we're not going to spend a lot of time at the Great Council. It's just a frame to sort of open the show with. So, yeah, you're not going to see Alysanne and Jacaerys holding hands and riding their dragons or anything like that. It's just
I wish
to set the table. So, Yeah, I don't
Probably
want
just to
anyone
get,
to.
no, it's just to get people's reactions. Like, I want to see Corlys be livid. And I'm also excited to see Viserys, not be a barbarian about it. He's gonna be like, oh, okay, the burden falls onto me now. But, in a very collected way. Like, and again, I do think, and I don't know because I haven't seen it, but I do think that the scene where he looks at Emma is right here. And he's just like, oh, now we get to do this. I don't know.
Yeah, it's there's definitely some good facial acting going on there, and the reactions. And I will say, because you mentioned Alysanne, and I was listening to that section. One thing that jumped out to me when they were like 13 and 15, or 12 and 14. Alysanne is 2 years younger than Jacaerys. It was already said of Alysanne that she was smart enough to be a maester. So she was looked at as even smarter than Jacaerys, because somebody made a remark about, oh, Jacaerys might be a maester, and then it was like Barth said that actually Alysanne was looked upon even more favorably in that regard. So Alysanne is really fucking smart, you guys. That's just one thing. But there's a new Alysanne artwork from the newest calendar, and I will share it with you. It is from Renee Agner, who's done a whole bunch of good stuff. And this is, of course, her flying Silverwing near the wall.
To the wall.
And famously, take it away. Famously, what happened there?
She saw the poor conditions that the wall was in, and she was like, I'm gonna do something for you guys. And they ended up giving them land, right? Is that one of the two gifts?
So there's three things that happened.
Were kind of like, yeah.
Yeah, she
Go for it.
She extended. That was the second gift, the new gift. Brandon's gift was the first one. That's the appointment of land to the Watch. So she extended their lands. They renamed. She moved them from Night Fort to a new fort, and they renamed Snowgate to Queensgate in her honor.
Queensgate.
And of course, in this picture, she's trying to. I will do that in just a second, Minty. She's asking for slow mode. In this picture, she's trying to fly over the wall, but Silverwing refused 3 times, would not fly over the wall. So, what do you think that means for the Song of Ice and Fire endgame? Because that obviously is a very interesting piece of information.
It is, and it's clearly not there just by, it's not casual that it's there. I mean, Silverwing probably knows what's on the other side of the wall, or what's going to be on the other side of the wall. Dragons are smart.
It's like, hell no, I ain't going that way.
Yeah, no, especially not alone.
Now, do you think she can't fly over the wall? Or do you think that...
I think she could. I think she just senses that it's dangerous and she shouldn't go there alone. I don't think that she physically couldn't go.
Yeah,
there is magic in the wall. Like
I'm totally on the fence about it, to be honest. I can't decide whether it's a hard barrier, or if it's just like uncomfortable and like, ooh, I'm not going there, kind of a thing. Like, maybe in a dire need you could get the dragon to fly across, but I think the wall's going to come down before the dragons need to fly north anyway. Myself.
Probably. Yeah.
So
I feel like it's just like the magic of the wall is sending a signal.
What do you mean? Oh, like just that certain things can get.
No, I mean, like, it's just like the Silverwing understands that there's something going on there, and the I mean, because the wall is magical, right? I mean, probably.
Yeah.
Imbued with magic, and Silverwing gets that, and she's like, okay, I probably shouldn't cross it. If it's, it's a magical, huge, colossal magical object, and it's there for a reason, clearly blocking passage, I probably shouldn't fly over it.
Guy H says, but how will I find the best adult dating site if it's on slow mode? I think the main message that it sends is that the dragons aren't going to have a cakewalk against the others. Like, it just means that the cold magic has something that the dragons find icky. So in the long night episode, the short night, those cold winds were tough for the dragons. Like, they didn't like them. They couldn't fly as well in them. And we've seen that happens also at Storm's End during the conquest. Meraxes is kind of grounded. It's so rainy and stormy that she ends up fighting on the ground. And of course, there's at Storm's End again during the dance, there's a dragon confrontation where the storm and the rain factors in as well. So one of the things Fede, we were talking about what to do the stream about it. And the other topic I had tossed out was Dany and House of the Dragon. Because there's some questions about like, well, what does this mean for Dany and stuff like that? And in particular, George said something interesting about Fire and Blood. He's like, oh, well, Daenerys, if she had had this book, it would have been really helpful to her in Meereen, but she didn't have this, so she had to figure it out on her own. And so that got me thinking, what in Fire and Blood would have been helpful for Dany to know about? And some of this stuff is the stuff that we're talking about, like trying to fly north of the wall, dragons in the rain, all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I don't know if you had any thoughts about that, but...
I mean, it's definitely also about, I feel like the politics of it all, because at the end of the day, Dany is a 15-year-old trying to rule over a city that isn't hers and, with customs that she doesn't really know. Of course, she does a very good job at surrounding herself with people who do know and at listening to their counsel, contrary to what some people will have you believe about Daenerys. But she, I have to put that there. But, she didn't really get a chance to learn about any of this because the only person who was there with her was Viserys, and he also didn't really get a chance because when they went away from King's Landing and then Dragonstone, he was a baby. He was a little boy, and he didn't really have a good role model. When it's not like he was cupbearer for a good king, or at all.
No, he only right exactly he was young, too young to really understand, and his dad was a mad king. So yes.
Yeah.
And then you make a good point. I'm kind of shaking my head because I'm embarrassed. I'm like, well, what does Dany need to know from Fire and Blood? I'm like, well, what about the dragon magic? And you make the better point, actually, the politics of how to be a Targaryen king. She might have learned something from like the example of Aenys versus Maegor versus Aegon versus Jacaerys. Those first four Targaryen kings, there's a lot of lessons there about how to do it, isn't there?
Yeah, how to treat, the nobles in Meereen. I mean, even just the history itself, I'm sure Viserys must have told her some stories, but it's not like he could have. I mean, maybe in Essos when they were guests of like Illyrio and other rich people, maybe they did have access to like books, probably, but.
I was just thinking, I was imagining her reading the part with Daemon and Aemond over the God's Eye and finishing that section and be like, well, dragon saddles. All right. Those are a thing.
That's what we got to do.
So we got chains on there and all right. Got it. Got to look alive for those dragon riders that don't fasten the chains. Got to watch out for them. So yeah, it's really interesting the way that, and I was thinking about this morning too. House of the Dragon, one of the exciting things about it is that it's clearly plowing into an unplowed field, which is old Valyria. We know so little about Valyria and not even that much about the early Targaryens. So like they really can do exposition here. And we're just sitting there going like, what? Tell us more. Like, we don't know.
There's everything.
Right. There's not something on the record.
We'll take
we don't know.
All the crumbs we can get.
Right. Like everything is interesting. Like we saw the egg sitting in that brazier and we're like, what is that? Is that keeping it warm? Is it quickening the egg? Is it, what's that for? And then we got a slightly wider shot. Sorry, go ahead.
That's what Dany also did. Remember with the dragon eggs at the very beginning, she was like, oh, let's keep them warm.
You're right.
Yeah, she didn't know. It was instinct.
I wonder if that was like a necessary step to like get them ready to hatch or something. Oh, I didn't even think about that. Yeah. Very nice. Very nice. Yeah, because we see that when the wider shot, you can see that it's a thing that you can carry. So they put a lid on it and they carry it. So it's almost like you want to keep the egg warm if you take it out of like, the dragon catacombs or whatever.
Yeah.
Very cool. And that is one of the coolest things. Yeah. Minty, that is one of the coolest things. Dany's instincts in Game of Thrones. She's having the dreams and she's just using the Force and just figuring out how to hatch dragon eggs on instinct. It's very, very cool. I love that about Game of Thrones, the first book. So let's take Silverwing down. I do want to discuss this here. So on these pillars, I believe that, this could be the 4 Targaryen kings up to this point. That would be my guess. Emergency Awesome, that's what they claimed they were. I don't know where he's getting that info. But the one on the far right looks like Jacaerys, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like he's got that same crown that Jacaerys is wearing right here. And when Jacaerys is in his youth, his hair is longer and flowing like that. So I think that could be Jacaerys. The other ones I can't really tell. There's one other picture that has these two, but I just like it because it definitely reminds me of Lord of the Rings. The 2 statues in Gondor, there, one's got the hand out like that. So vibes,
Absolutely.
We've got dirty Legolas, so we might as well have the Gondorian statues.
As you said, it really gives you the scope of how massive everything is. Even just to understand, the throne room is huge, which is something you wouldn't necessarily get from the first show.
Yeah, every scene is like that. Yeah, they really they hit the ground running as far as the budget and the set design. Because things did start to feel very big at the end of Game of Thrones. It's just that we were distracted by the plot being terrible. So, but there definitely are like taking everything they learned production-wise from the first show and then going further with it. So yeah, it feels pro right off the bat. I know some people will always diss the wigs. I'm sorry, I can't help you there. Nothing will make you people happy. I'm kidding.
I mean, our wigs may be bad, but I'm sure that theirs on the show with post-production will look great. Like, don't worry. That's their job. That's what they do. They will look better.
So one of the interesting things about Corlys is that he kind of survives when a lot of other people don't.
Yes. He's the last one standing, really.
Yeah, and I've started to think more about his motivations as I've gone back over the story. Like the whole strong kids thing.
Yes.
One wonders why he goes along with it. But the thing that somebody pointed out to me is that, well, the Jacaerys and Lucerys are betrothed to Laena and Daemon's kids, who they know are Velaryons. So it ends up being sort of sewn up in the end result. And it just shows you how much this is about like legacy and what people think. Not necessarily, you know what I mean?
He says it in the teaser. History remembers names, not blood. Who cares if they're not actually my grandchildren? They bear my name, and that's all that matters. That's what will go down in the history books is their names, and they are of my blood. And that the fact that I acknowledge them as my grandkids and heirs and whatever makes them mine. No matter if they're not.
That's interesting because I had taken that like, oh, don't worry about the blood shed. People just remember the greatness. But you're totally right. It could absolutely apply in that context. That's really interesting.
And he could be saying that also, well, obviously no, he has to say it in the first season, so it couldn't be to the dragon seeds. But I feel like that would also apply, when he was talking to his other grandchildren or children, Adam and Alan, when he adopts them and he's like, oh, now you are my again, like now you're my heirs, now you bear my name,
right? So not to completely spoil it, but 2 of Corlys's bastards turn up later in the story, and and they get passed off as Laenor's kids so as not to dishonor Rhaenys. But the interesting thing that occurred to me is that, like, Corlys wasn't pulling no Ned Stark, Jon Snow shit on Rhaenys. He wasn't bringing his bastards home to court and being like, these are my bastards, we're just going to raise them here. Like, hell no. He kept them hidden and did not make them public until after Rhaenys was no longer alive. So that's... yeah, a lot of people die in this story. Look, that's what it is. It's the dying of the dragons. That's what they say, right? In Fire and Blood. And like, it's called the Dance of the Dragons, but it should be called the Dying of the Dragons. Everybody dies, just a matter of how. But the point is, when Rhaenys lived, Corlys absolutely hid these bastards. So it just goes to show, like, her husband wasn't messing with her.
She had a dragon.
She had a dragon, that's right.
You know, you don't want to mess with that.
Yeah, so that is pretty interesting. And we do have a shot of Jacaerys and Lucerys.
Yes.
With Rhaenyra. This is a pretty compelling photo. How does this make you feel, Fede?
Oh, I mean, the blood is probably not... this is clearly the, one of the altercations with their uncles. Their uncles, yes. Aegon and Aemond. Because we can see that by the dress. Yeah, by the dress that Rhaenyra is wearing. It's the same in the trailer as...
when they're fighting, right, with the knife. Yeah.
So that's one of the first, I would assume, times that they actually, that it gets the blows between them, because they do look quite young as well. The conflict is coming in, and they're not shying away from it. I'm very excited to see that. The setting is probably going to look different, but from how it is in the book. But, I know for the longest of time, I was very worried that we wouldn't get Joffrey, that he would be one of the people who would get cut, because we do have so many characters, and, you don't want people confusing them. But then, I think a name there popped up for a possible actor, and something that George and Ryan Condal said at Comic-Con also really reassured me. They were like, we know, obviously television is always going to oversimplify things, but we know that our audience is smart. Like, we don't have to treat you guys like elementary school kids. So we don't need
Joffrey has to be in there because the part with him and Rhaenyra in King's Landing is really important emotionally.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. And you know what I was thinking? What's really interesting is... I had Grey Waste Tim on last week, and he was talking about how Daemon always wins, even when you think he might have lost. And, Jacaerys, the work that he does in Winterfell is really important, because when the Starks come down at the end of the story, that's really what mops things up for their side. So both Daemon and Jacaerys, they kind of went out heroes. Like, their deaths were not in vain, and they essentially secured the victory more than any other two people for their side. So, shout out to Jace. I do think he'll be a fan favorite.
Yes.
So
Jace is great. I mean, he had so much potential. From the moment he's made Prince of Dragonstone and actually is given power, from when Rhaenyra kind of goes into the depression because they've lost Luke. Jace kind of, gets the show going, and he really becomes their general because Daemon is not there. And he does everything he needs to. And he's, I think, 16 at that point, so not that young, but still, he's basically running the campaign.
Yep.
And I do feel like he would have made a great king if given the chance to. Also, especially with Baela next to him by his side. Yeah. Also,
and so that's the kind of thing that the show, if the show is smart, they will take a moment to give us those kinds of moments so that we can, because a lot of this story is like a glimpse of what could have been, but for sake of all these tragedies. So those are more meaningful if you get a minute to see what could have been. So yeah, I expect we'll spend a little more time with some of these characters, enough to get us hooked on them before they die. So there's just so many. Like I mentioned earlier, there could be some characters that are only in a couple episodes, but that you get attached to real quick. So that'll be some of the place where we'll really look for the writing to be skillful or not. Like, can they hook us into these characters in a short amount of time? Because that's what George is really good at. He's a short story writer by trade, and he always talks about that being a really good way to start writing, because it teaches you to build a character quickly and to get an audience wrapped around their conflict of the heart very quickly. And he always does it in those prologue chapters where we're meeting a character just, in the only chapter we're going to read about them. So look for the show to be able to do that. I felt like they did that with Emma Arryn in the first episode. She's not going to be on the show long, obviously, if you know what Fire and Blood, how the events go. But right off the bat, it was like, okay, I care about this character. So promising signs as far as that goes.
You said something interesting earlier, like a moment ago. You said
oh, good.
Jason Daemon didn't.
I try. So, no.
You always say interesting things. No, but you said Jason Daemon didn't really die in vain. I wanted to explore that point for a second. I feel like Jace's death was kind of in vain, but I'm going to quote George Martin and say that people's lives have meanings, not their deaths. And this is something that Quentin's friends say after his supposed death. I'm one of those people.
Oh.
And, at the end of the day, yes.
Shut
at
down
the
the screen.
Day,
no. delete.
Kidding. No, but like Jace, for the little time that he is allowed power and allowed authority and responsibility, he does make such a stark difference. Get it? And he really does turn the tide of the war, because if he hadn't gone up to Winterfell and successfully negotiated, they literally wouldn't have won. Like, their faction wouldn't have won, and we wouldn't have had the Hour of the Wolf. So even if he did kind of have a pointless death, what came before was really, really significant, and that's what really turned the tide.
Yeah, like literally no one's death, unless we're talking about Nissa's life energy, literally like creating Lightbringer. Like yeah, you're right. Yeah, the death doesn't have meaning; it's the life. But yes, in the time that he had, he made a difference. And their final acts, some of their final acts of courage, made the difference later on. So, yeah, definitely some cool writing when you think about the character and the mark that they made. Yeah. So yeah.
I do wonder, on talking about Jace would have made a good king and he's a good strategist. Like, I do wonder if we'll see, little Jace maybe looking at what his uncle or grandfather are doing, and just like, so this is how you do, just like getting a little, it doesn't have to be a scene. It's just literally, like showing us where the various characters are and what they're doing as an actual scene is going on. Maybe he's sneaking into the council and he's like, getting a sense of what's going on, what everybody thinks, even as a young lad.
Yeah. So
I don't know.
No, you're exactly right. And in fact, you could go further with that and say one of the paths that, one of the doors not opened, the paths not walked, was just marrying Rhaenyra to Harwin. Because, like, the Strongs are a very, what's the word? They are a highly esteemed house. They trace their ancestry all the way back to the first men. Harwin Strong is the strongest man in the kingdom. So if you're into like a Targaryen eugenics, like kind of a angle, which they are into, you'd say, well, there's a strong husband, a sperm donor or whatever you want to say, like, because that's what they were into. They're trying to create.
Also, their seed is Harrenhal, so it's not, it's not bad. It's like the
so
biggest
politically,
castle ever.
right? No, they're a politically powerful family, ancient lineage, and literally Harwin is the strongest dude in the kingdom. And look at his kids. They had great kids. All three of them are brave and valiant. They're born healthy, strapping lads. Like, oh, they didn't have a Valyrian looks, but they also rode dragons. So like, yeah, but they should have just married Rhaenyra to Harwin. He probably would have been a decent prince consort, and Rhaenyra would have been happy and well supported and had heirs that were worthy of the throne. The only problem is that she was married to Laenor and then almost certainly had kids with Harwin, and that politically is a problem because it's treason. Like, that's the friggin' problem. But if
they should have leaned in. Like, this is their mistake. They should have said, "Oh, the Aaron look is really strong in your children, Rhaenyra. Like, your mom and her dad would have been so proud." Like, they should have said, "Oh, like dark hair, Aaron," and they didn't.
You would have wanted to blame it on the Baratheon grandmother, right? Because because Rhaenys had dark hair. The Aarons are fair haired, so that wouldn't really explain it as much. But Rhaenys had black hair in the books. And that's Jace's grandmother. So that's the thread of plausibility or whatever. But the point is, like, they should have just married Rhaenyra to Harwin. Harwin was a suitable candidate to marry her. Now, in the books, it makes it sound like Rhaenyra agrees to marry Laenor and then goes out and that night starts an affair with Harwin after being rejected by Criston Cole. That sounds like a little too much slander to me. Like, she's bouncing from one dude to the next on this night that she agrees to marry a third dude. Like, okay, tell me what really happened. But the point is, like, the Harwin-Rhaenyra thing was starting up right around the time that she was being married off. And Harwin was a suitor for Rhaenyra going back earlier when, like, Rhaenyra, they were making a royal progress and all the young knights were contending for her hand. Harwin's name was at least mentioned among those names. That was a real missed opportunity, probably. Wasn't it?
Definitely.
Isabel's suggesting that maybe the Lucamore, the lusty dishonor was still a factor, maybe, but I'm not sure.
I feel like there would have been so many plausible suitors, and they probably just went with Laenor because they wanted to unify the family, obviously Valyrian blood, but not just that. It was also like, let's make Corlys happy again, because Corlys did for a time. Well, is that later? No, he did leave the council for a bit.
Oh yeah.
I think that's when Viserys doesn't want to marry Laena. That's when Corlys leaves the council. So to kind of ingratiate that side of the family. And what we were saying before, what you said is we have 3 Targaryens who are not collaborating because Rhaenys kind of stands apart. This is a way to get them back into the family. You want to have Corlys on your side. And Rhaenys.
So I think what this is getting down to with a lot of these characters is the idea of marrying for love or marrying for duty in politics. George loves to put people in that bind, clearly. And it seems like in medieval times, this was a bind that all the high lords were essentially in. That's why so many of them had paramours and things. And so we see, a lot of these characters marrying for reasons of politics. And then we have to wonder if love is a factor. Or when people marry for love, it's like, well, are they doing the right thing? Or is that actually selfish? Because it's not considering the needs of the realm. There's no right answer necessarily. It's something that George wants us to debate. But there's multiple characters that end up being put in that bind. And so that's the thing about the Harwin thing. It's like, well, people aren't robots. So it's one thing to say, well, go marry Laenor because that's the best political thing to do. And you could certainly say that Rhaenyra's duty is to do whatever makes the realm more stable, and so what she wants doesn't matter. But at the same end, like, if you want someone like Rhaenyra to, like, have a stable marriage that you can then have the whole kingdom look to as this example of, a good strong family with good strong sons and heirs and all this stuff, well, maybe that's more likely to happen when you put her in a situation that she actually wants to be in, like a marriage with Harwin. So I think that's just something that we're meant to wrestle with a lot of these characters.
Definitely.
Yeah.
As you said, there is no right answer. I mean, Viserys kind of married because he wanted to, and then when his daughter says she doesn't want to marry, he
Right.
doesn't. So yeah.
So Viserys, it seems like Viserys and Aemma Arryn is probably a political marriage arranged by Alysanne, and probably
Yeah.
Daemon and Rhea Royce almost certainly is a
Yeah.
political marriage, probably by Alysanne. So then when Viserys has a second go around, he marries for love. We see that with
Exactly.
Cersei when she doesn't want to be married off to the Tyrell
Loras,
uh,
yeah.
heir. She's like, no, I was married politically one time and not again. So we see people chafe against that in Game of Thrones also. And yeah, it's just one of those things. Yeah, so Viserys marries for love the second time, but then tries to tell his daughter that she needs to marry for politics. And meanwhile, Uncle Daemon is married to Rhea Royce, but was keeping Mysaria as a paramour at the same time. So if we were wondering where Rhaenyra got the idea that she could keep a paramour, Harwin, while married to Laenor, well, probably from Uncle Daemon.
Of course.
So, yeah.
And I mean, I'm sure. Okay, we can't talk about leaks. So Laenor and Rhaenyra must have had conversations where they were like, okay, this is basically a lavender marriage, right? Because Rhaenyra knew very well. In the book, she does say, I feel like Laenor would prefer one of my half brothers.
Right. Yeah.
Before they get married. So it is common knowledge that Laenor is gay.
Yeah.
But afterwards she comes around. I do like to think that they have a very good relation, dynamic, the two of them, and they can be partners in the sense that they're like, okay, like, you do whatever you want, I do whatever I want. I will, your children are gonna be my children. I will die saying that they're mine. So obviously they're both taking advantage of the situation. It's mutually beneficial, right? At the end of the day, it's not that bad for Rhaenyra.
Yeah, you see those shots of Laenor and Rhaenyra walking on the beach, and some of them they look like they're smiling. Some of them they look very like they have they're talking about serious, heavy stuff. But yeah, just the fact that that Rhaenyra is good friends with Daemon and Laena when they're married.
Good friends. That's how they call it.
I'm putting it on a tee for you. I'm setting it up, and you knock it out of the park. That's how it works. We're a team here. So yeah, they're all friends, and they're riding their dragons together and listening to music together, getting stoned together in the dark. Whatever they do, whatever's going on there, who knows?
I mean, listen, whatever they do, Cyrix has eggs. She makes clutches of eggs. So whatever they do is kind of been mirrored by their dragons, and that's all I'm gonna say. But
I see.
And it's those eggs that are, whatever.
This seems like a theory you spent time thinking about.
Yes.
Yes, she says.
I mean, it's not even a theory. It's just like a fact. It's right there on the page. Like, there are so many people who refuse to believe that Rhaenyra had anything going on with Laena when it's right there on the page. Like, it says that she became fond and more fond of her good sister, the Lady Laena, and that's like, okay. And
that is kind of how they speak about things like that,
right?
Yeah,
Exactly.
with little euphemisms, like Raina and Alyssa Farman. They're like, Raina had a series of favorites, like Melanie Piper and blah, blah, blah. It's like, oh, okay, all right,
No, and I've had people come to me and say, no, but it's not spelled out on the page. Like, what do you expect it to say? Like, do you expect the Maester to write, like, Rhaenyra was bisexual? Like,
and there was hanky panky.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes they'll give you the mushroom thing, like, they say, once in a while Rhaenyra would watch Laenor with his boyfriend or whatever. But basically there's some sort of rumors. Well, there's lots of rumors about Rhaenyra and Daemon that they're sexual deviants throughout the story. There's all kinds of slander. But definitely you get the idea that there may have been some Roman activities going on.
Parties.
There's a really funny thing in Fire and Blood where they're looking for a euphemism to describe, deviant sex acts, and they're like the kind of thing that goes on in lice. It's just, it's like, oh, okay, I know what you mean. Yeah. So anyway, point is, they're friends. Rhaenyra, so Laena is married to Daemon for a time. At the same time, Rhaenyra is married to Laenor. Driftmark and Dragonstone, you might be able to. They're so close. You might be able to see the Dragonstone mountain from Driftmark, like you probably could. So it's a quick trip on a dragon, and they're all flying dragons around the Narrow Sea and becoming fond and more fond of each other, or whatever's going on there. So that's going to be a real cool part of the story. I'm looking forward to seeing that, to be honest. Just like. Give us a couple moments of dragon riders just having fun and frolicking. Like it's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. As long as they have saddles, it won't be like the never-ending story. So, as we've established. Yeah. All right. Well, we are over 2 hours. Are there any closing thoughts that you feel like you did not get out that you would like to get out? And yes, good friends like Patroclus and Achilles. Exactly right. Yeah. You got to get your it's like when they do the Pompeii excavations. I mean, like, these two men were best friends and they died in each other's arms. Yes.
They were very good friends.
Very good friends.
Anyway.
And no, the saddle was not a sex joke. I don't know how to change names. It's literally on the never-ending story. He clings to Falcor's back with his hands, and there's no saddle. It doesn't look very realistic. And so when Dany was riding Drogon with no saddle, I made never-ending story jokes. And so now, you should never explain your jokes. Anyways.
Let me be a clown and say that, like, pitch this to HBO whenever the series ends. Like when, like in like 15 years from now, when House of the Dragon is over, it's not going to last 15 years, but I don't want to make up a more realistic number. So when that happens, hey HBO, I hope you're listening. I hope it better end with Daenerys on the throne, kind of telling her daughter, hey, look, this is the story of maybe why I named you Rhaenyra or whatever. I don't know. But yeah, this is how it should end.
So you want them to try to fix the Daenerys ending somehow?
Honestly, yeah, not even fix, just like we're gonna disregard it. I know that's not what Ryan and Miguel want to do, but in 15 years' time, maybe they'll think differently.
That's what I would like. I would like to see it just disregarded altogether.
Yeah, me too.
Well, what do you think the Snow Show is going to do?
Sorry, what?
What do you think the Snow Show is going to do?
I hope nothing.
Okay. Yeah, I feel you.
I hope it doesn't get made. Honestly, I mean, why? What is he going to do? Like, we're not going to get Emilia Clarke back, so there's no chance of, resuscitating Daenerys, unfortunately. I wouldn't want her to be played by anybody else. I don't think most people would.
Well, I mean, just because Kit and Emilia are so close, I kind of feel like if Kit really leaned on her, he might be able to convince her to come back, even though she said she doesn't want to. Mm-hmm. But I don't really want to see any of that. I don't want to see...
That would be the only thing that I would accept. Like, if it were to be made, it would need to be that. Like, we're bringing Daenerys back. If not, I don't want it.
Yeah. I don't want it. No, I'm just not interested in continuing on that timeline at all. I don't think many people are. So if HBO, if you're listening, make that 10,000 ships show. I mean, heck, the Young Corlys show sounds awesome too, because he goes so many places. Like, he goes to Yee and Ashai and the Jade Sea and Karth and the Summer Isles and north to Mosavie and everywhere else. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, I see somebody. Oh, Minty got him first. Gee, I was going to get that one. Minty. The Dany slander. You got to give me a second to ban the Dany slander, but makes me feel good. Yeah, don't come with the Dany hate speech here, bro. Not here. No. Not tonight. Yeah, anyways. All right, well, let's go ahead and wrap it up. So you are on Twitter. Yes. You are at Lady Multifandom on Twitter.
Correct.
And you are a great follow. You are full of entertaining, snarky tweets and things like that. So just the kind of account you want to follow. You're on Instagram too. What are you on IG?
It's Daenerys. Just for a change.
Oh,
So it's the
F-E
first
and then the
letters of
word
my
Daenerys,
name.
right.
Yes,
So, okay,
and
yeah.
then Daenerys, yeah.
Very
'Cause
nice.
it's Fede, right? Right.
Which is your
Thank
character
you.
right now. Your persona right now is Daenerys.
Literally, exactly. So I felt really smart when I figured that out, that could be my handle. I was like, I'm going to make it my entire personality.
That's a pretty good one, yeah. So, all right. Yeah. Well, there you go, guys. So I will just tell you a little bit of what's coming on this channel. The much anticipated Daemon's latest video is making progress. I actually re-recorded the performance part, you guys. I was looking back on it, and it was like I was tired when I did it. It wasn't good. So I scrapped it and re-recorded a new performance, snuck it right under all the pictures that I had already laid out. It's not peppier and snappier now. So I'll have that out either on Tuesday or Wednesday. We're going to do another live stream next Sunday. And then starting the Monday after, meaning the week before House of the Dragon, I'm going to do one video every day for 7 days. 7 days of dragon videos leading up to House of the Dragon. It'll be the week of the dragon. One of these slogans I'll settle on. Yeah, so look forward to that. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. And yeah, there you go.
Can't wait.
There it is. Yes, the Daemon's Ladies one is like 35 minutes. It's thorough. I've got a nice, healthy section on Laena and Nettles. And obviously a big section on Rhaenyra. Mysaria's in there, a little Rhea Royce. So, yeah. Look forward to that one. All right, well, thank you. You've been a great guest. I look forward to having you back again during the season sometime.
Absolutely. This has been very much a lot of fun. So thank you so much for having me.
Right on. And you, like you said, you are a writer, and you have articles published various places. So follow her on Twitter, and you can check out Fede's writings during the season, which she will always be tweeting out. So
yes, and we've got a few more coming out before the show premieres in 2 weeks, so stay tuned. I'm trying my best to spread the word and get more people to watch it, because we wouldn't want it to fail just because people aren't tuning in. So,
I saw one person that's like, I can't watch this because I know it's preventing George from writing Winds. I was like, that's not going to make Winds come out any sooner. You might as well just watch it. But,
Absolutely.
Whatever. All right, guys. Well, thanks. You guys have a great Sunday, and I'll see you again in a couple days with a new video. And that's it. Take care.
Bye.